Fraser, hardware specialist for Crop Intelligence. So yeah, been here for 4 years.
Kyle Henderson, I think I see most of you around as well too. I'm the business manager for Crop Intelligence. Started here January 2nd. So we've got lots of exciting things happening, and as we Crop Intelligence outside of South Country and hire some more folks and get a couple more processes and some other things in place as well too. That's a lot of what I'm working on right now as well. So great to see you all.
Confirm your app is up to date at 24.04. We just launched a new version last night. And so that'll be kind of coming down the pipe here in the next little bit. So you're up to date if you're on 24.04. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So like I said, we're going to pick up from where we left off from the onboarding. Hopefully everyone can see my screen here. So the last 2 days we've gone through the onboarding training, how to select a site, some of the considerations that you need to know about the customer site, about their farm, and about what they're growing in that crop this past year. So first and foremost, the number one most important thing is that everyone in this room that is going to be in charge of installing, you need to have the capability to actually have the clearance level to install Pro. So if you're logged in on the desktop, you need to be able to have some of these administrative tab functions. Okay, if you're only responsible for the install, you won't be able to see these onboarding pieces. Oh, yes, perfect. Thanks, guys. Thanks for letting me know. Embarrassing. Perfect. So if you are responsible for doing the onboarding and the installs, you need to make sure that you have administrative level access. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see your links. You need to be able to have underneath this tab, hardware and onboarding at minimum. Okay, so that's where we're going to spend the next little couple of minutes here. So first and foremost, we're going to take back to the onboarding tab. So this is the process of all of the information being input into the system. And if you had attended training either this morning or yesterday morning, we went through this physical process. So for today's example, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the customer account that I've created for training. So that's my name, Crop Intelligence is the vendor, my farm name. And you can see that from the onboarding tab, I have actually completed my onboarding and it tells me the date in which it was completed. If I select into that customer, I can see the name of the field, what kind of station it is. So the type could potentially either be farm gate, crop intelligence, or crop intelligence irrigation. I can see that I have completed the zone review and the site selection. So to go back through that zone review, I can go ahead and I can actually click through the information that I've already approved. So this is where whoever is responsible for the onboarding process at your retail, they would have completed this for you. So there's the assumptions that you need to know. You need to know what crop is going there. You need to have an idea of approximately what soil type is in that field. We give you some defaults if you're not 100% sure, but this all needs to be complete and filled in. Yield goal, estimated days to maturity. And at the top here, I've already approved this zone. And I'm going to go ahead and select save. So that's the zone review process to finish and complete the onboarding. When I go back to that customer's onboarding page, we can see that the site selection box has also been turned green. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to walk you through that site selection process. So it's here during onboarding where we pick the spot in the field where that probe and that station will actually physically be placed. So at this point in time, I've already approved the site selection. You can see that that's denoted here as site selection has been marked as approved. It's going to tell me the customer name, the field size, and where the lat and long for the station are and where the lat and long for the probe are. Okay, so this is a good way to go in and check as an installer to confirm, hey, where am I actually going? Do I have questions about that for whoever's sending me to do the install? So you can see this here. At this point in time, you can drag and move this station, but it is not going to save. So if you accidentally play around in here and if you were to move this station, it's not going to change the location of that station at this point in time. What has already been saved and selected are these GPS lat long pieces right now. Once I go back to the onboarding piece, you will see that I still have to complete one step until I can go and actually physically install that station. And that would be my seeding date information. So the assumptions ahead of time were my crop type, my soil type, my management factor, okay, where I'm going to be placing that probe. And I also inputted an estimated seeding date. But now, say let's move 2 weeks ahead of time. That customer has told me that he has seeded the field today. Okay, so we're going to go with the assumption that this canola crop was seeded today. So in order to turn this final red box to green, I need to go into that customer zone and add a seeding date. So I'm going to go into my customers. I'm going to find that customer. And I'm going to go into their customer account. So within here, we can see that we've done the zone approval. We've also completed the site approval. And I have entered the agronomic information, which would be my fertility, and if you wanted to upload your soil sample into that account. So there's two pieces of information that need to be completed now at this step. The first is the seeding date. So I'm going to go ahead within this customer's account. I'm going to go ahead and select enter that date. So now it's asking me for the actual seeding date that is needed. Go ahead and select today's date. April 11th. Hit save. So now you can see that the zone has been approved, the site has been approved, and the seeding date has been entered. I've also completed my agronomic information. If you want to review back and make sure that you don't need to edit any of that information, you can simply click on that agronomic information. If you want to update the variety at that time, you can. You know, maybe he initially planned to seed a Liberty variety and now he's seeding a different Liberty variety. Whatever that change needs to be, you can change it at this point. You can also change the field size. You can change any of the fertility that maybe have changed, the organic matter, residual N. So now the final step to turn this station from being in an onboarded state to being in an installed state, we actually have to go and do this process through the app. Prior to that, if you are working with someone in your network that is going to be assigning that installation to you, you would then go view it in the app. For the purpose of today, we are going to also review that route planning. And again, I know maybe not all of us in here will be planning routes, but it's good transparency to understand how that route is actually assigned to you. So once we've entered the customer's account information, we've onboarded them, we've entered a seeding date, this site needs to be planned for an install, okay?
Can your seeding date be changed once it's entered and saved?
Once it's entered and saved, can your seeding date be changed? Like if you wanted to change it from here?
Yeah.
You could change the seeding date, yes, in the agronomic settings, you could adjust that to the actual seeding date. So saying this is the estimated seeding date. Sure, this is the seeding date.
That's the estimate, the seeding one.
Yeah, not the estimated, but
Actual one, you could edit it. I'm just wondering how would you like, maybe because there was a miscommunication between
yeah,
us and grower? Yeah, you could go ahead and change it to yesterday's date. Then you always want to make sure whenever you're making an edit in there that you save the agronomic settings and that you cache the station, because that's going to start to account for water drift yield potential at a different date if we've changed that seeding date. So if any of you are going to be involved in route planning, quick show of hands, will anybody be involved in route planning? I know there's probably some that are virtual. Is anybody going to be assigning routes for somebody to pick, either for themselves or for someone else? Has anyone ever really looked at route planning or had any experience with that?
It is wonderful.
So not only can you use route planning for installs, but you can also use route planning for maintenance and for scouting. So you can actually assign a route for any task within the system. So I think for that purpose, it's definitely valuable for us today. If you're someone who's being told to go out to a number of stations in one day, like I said, whether it be for installs, maintenance, even removals, or in-season scouting or check-ins, you can use this functionality, you can use this tool. So in order to access where the route planning is, it's actually within the customer dashboard. Is somebody tuned in here just to monitor any questions that come in?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So within the map overview, you will actually start to see all of your pins that have been populated for this year. So here you're in your dashboard, you're in your quick links, you're in your map overview, and you can start to see all these pins that are populated. Again, the most important thing is to make sure that you're in the proper year. So I want to be in 2024 always when I'm planning my routes. So I'm going to go ahead and save my planning routes. For me, I have to make sure that I'm on crop intelligence if we are going to be adding the station that I just created from today. I want to make sure that I'm all statuses. See, did not cleared. If you're not sure which each one of these pins actually means, so here you'll see, if I were to go back to last year, you can actually see all of the pins that were populated that are no longer active online. So you can see all of these gray pins with the customer names, and if you're not sure what that specific color actually means, go to inactive. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to stay in 2023 just because we have a number of stations still populated here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select a few stations to be added to an install route. So once I have all the pins on my map, I can actually just slide over and select a pin. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select this first site name, second name, perfect. So what I've done is I've now made the assumptions that I need to go in and install 3 stations today. But what I actually did just now is I put them in the improper order. So whatever station that is first on the list is where you're going to start first. So if you need to edit that list, you can actually just click and drag and edit. And again, if you're not someone who's managing the installs, maybe you're just trying to plan your own day for maintenance, you can actually create your own route and assign it to yourself as well. So this tool, like I said, can be used throughout the year.
Can it be edited in the app, or once it is created, there's no editing?
Once the route has been published, you can't edit it. Once it's been assigned, you can't edit it. You can go back and you can view the previous ones that you've created, but I don't think you can edit it, no. So you'll see the site name, the customer name, the vendor, what platform it is, the station sensor configuration. And again, throughout the onboarding process, we went over the importance of having the correct sensors identified on each specific station. So if you may not know what that sensor configuration is, so say, for example, if we had to visit this customer's field and we didn't know what sensors were supposed to be on that station, it's really hard for us to know if something's missing or gone wrong, right? So that's why it's really important when we're installing our hardware, we're checking to see exactly which sensors are available and accounted for on that specific station. So once I've selected the sites that I want to go ahead and install that day and I've assigned them in the correct order, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the reason why I'm assigning them. So I have 3 different options: install, in-season maintenance, or an in-season visit, and removal. So today we're working on installation. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assign this to myself. You should be able to populate it and see every person in your organization that has installer access. If somebody is not coming up on here that's on your team and you don't have access to assign it to them, reach out because either that customer's account isn't set up to install, so therefore you wouldn't be able to assign it to them, or potentially there's an issue in the system with the logic of which team that they're a part of. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assign this route to myself. I'm gonna call it test installer training. The hardest word for me to spell is training. So tough. So within each one of these sites, you can see that I have selected it for install. I've assigned it to myself. I've created what the route is going to be called. But what I actually need to let the installer know or remind myself of is that at Wade Station, I need to make sure that I leave them a little note to say station needs to move off of sprayer track. So I've gone ahead and I've given myself a little bit of a reminder of what I need to think about when I'm installing that station. So if you save and add that note, it's actually going to show up on that specific account. So if you wanted to add notes for all of these, you could. If you wanted to remove any of these, say your plans have changed, you could just go ahead and remove this specific station. Once I have this set, I've selected my sites. Okay, I've assigned it for an install. I've assigned it to who will be installing it. I gave it a name, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select create route. Perfect. The route has been created for myself. I know that the route is going to be called installer training. It is for install. It's been assigned to me, and I know that I have 3 zones to now install. If you want, a good rule of thumb is if you're someone who likes a paper copy, you can actually download the PDF of these sheets to have in the truck with you. You can see who's owning the station, the customer site, the name, all the pieces of hardware that you need. And then it also shows you the map of where you're going to be going. So that's the sheet that's been created. So now the next step, everything that we've done has been completed here on the desktop. Now, in order to go to the next step, we need to do the installation through the app. So this form or this piece of information has been done. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen, my phone. Trying to set up. Anybody have any questions on that? Who here is going to be installing probes for the first time this year? Second year. Or you haven't installed any, Chris?
No, I did not.
Oh, removal. Okay. So sorry, quick show of hands again for the first time. Okay, so a couple. I'm just going to share my phone so that we can see the app view. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so here we are in the app. Depending on what your user access is, you may or may not see all of these tabs. But again, the most important tab that you need to be able to see is the station maintenance tab. Is everyone able to see the station maintenance tab? Silence is acceptance. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click into that station maintenance tab. Now, depending on if you're going out, we're going to follow through the example of the route that I assigned to myself. But if you're someone who's just going out and installing a station as a one-off, we'll walk through that process as well. So I'm going to go ahead. I've selected into station maintenance. I can now see my assigned routes. Okay, so that's where I have assigned the route to myself. So for the purpose of today, we selected test/installer training. That was the route that I assigned to myself. Now it's going to say 3 of 3 completed because I selected stations from last year. But when you select stations for 2024, you will see 0 of 3 completed. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click into that site. So you can see that I have 3 stations here to install. Okay, well now I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be bringing. This is my first time that I'm doing this. What actually do I need to have in the truck? What station needs to go where? So I can actually go in and for the route that I've been assigned, I can view my pack list. And for every station and for every site, it's telling me exactly what I need. So it's telling me what station I need, that I need burn spikes, probe cable, marking flag, leaf wetness sensor. I need my mounting post. I need my clamps. So as you're getting your pieces ready to put in the truck, I would use this checklist to make sure that you're pairing this station with these items, this station with these items, and so on and so forth. So that's in there to help you as you're planning out your day or you're being assigned your routes.
Alana, say you've got several years of assigned routes, do those previous years ever get archived, or does it just like show up as a big list? Because right now I've still got all of the ones from last year that I can see.
Can you make a note of that? On a piece of paper. Yeah, it should be able to, on the top right-hand corner, there should be a little calendar that we should be able to select for like which year it is. But you don't have that. We'll get that fixed up. So within the, again, we're in this test installer training. I viewed my pack list. If I wanted to see the stations that I have or haven't completed, you have the ability to toggle on or off, show only, incomplete. In this case, we've completed them all. We're using example from 2023, so we see each one of those. So let's say the first station that we're going to go and install is 23 canola field 6. Okay, so at a quick glance, it's telling you what the station is. Okay, who owns that station? And it's giving you a few different options as to how to navigate to that site. The first option is to copy the lat and long. The second option is to open your phone navigation and either select Google Maps or Apple Maps, depending on your device.
Google Maps only.
Google Maps only. You can also, again, view the pack list for this specific station, or you can open the reference guides that we have. So if you wanted to copy the lat and long or open up the nav, I suggest for ease opening up the navigation and selecting Google Maps. It's the quickest, most accurate way. Sometimes, depending on if you're going to a remote location, Apple Maps isn't always the best, and it can take you sometimes farther away from where you're actually trying to go. Google Maps will take you and walk you basically right up to that probe location. We got a bit of a drive to get this probe installed this afternoon. So you can see that that's my route. It's going to take me exactly right to the edge of the field where that probe is going to be installed. So that's the navigation feature. Again, you can open up this pack list for this specific site, only for this specific site. you can also refer to any of the reference guides that you may need. For example, today you have an awesome day, but you forget everything that we talked about and you're like, I don't know what to do. Every single one of the sites that you go to will have the access to these videos. So you could go in and watch any of these videos, or you could open up the install reference sheet, and it's actually going to pull open the PDF that we have to kind of walk you through step by step. Once it loads, walk you through step by step what you need to be doing, what you need to be focusing on, etc. So it's actually going to walk you through some of the basic steps of how to set things up if you need a quick reference guide, or that's something that's helpful for you. So we've navigated to the field, we've approached the spot of where we want to go, we've got to where we need to be. Now we need to start setting up the hardware. And the boys are going to go through how to set all that up in the field. I'm going to walk through the app piece that we need to track, okay, for this purpose. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to make sure that we have the proper gateway serial number and also the proper probe serial number. So step one is to get those pictures of those hardware items ahead of time. Okay, as soon as you get into the field where that spot is, take those serial numbers, because when the probe is in the ground, okay, and the bud is coming up around here and it's all around, and you're, you know, when it's sunken into the ground, to be able to get a picture of this probe serial number, it's just easier to get it as you're installing it ahead of time, right? So get the pictures for both of your pieces of hardware. If there was an additional flex device on this site, if the onboarding was done correctly for this specific site, it will populate every piece of hardware that you need. So say you had a flex, you know, potentially it's an irrigation setup. It would have an additional bucket. All of those pieces would be there if your onboarding was done correctly. If you approach a site, you go to install the station and there's a piece of hardware missing that you know that needs to be out there, that's a conversation to have with whoever onboarded that station. You need to go back in and adjust that hardware pairing. So what you have the ability to do is actually take photos of what you're seeing in the field. Take a picture of that hardware serial number, and you're going to actually upload it, into that specific account. So you can now see that I've attached the photo. If you're in an area with maybe spotty service or limited service, I recommend just taking the photos on your phone. And if you want to upload them at a later date, you absolutely can. But to make sure that you capture those serial numbers, because often there are chances for us to make mistakes when we have a lot on the go. And at times we could maybe place the wrong probe in a hole that should actually be, we have 3 probes loaded up and we put one on Wade's and we should have put it on John's. Stuff like that happens. Okay, we can adjust for that. But if we have the pictures, it gives us a good idea to dissect and understand how come that probe is not calling in, or it seems to be different data than what's actually out there. So we've attached the serial photo for the station. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach for the probe, add that photo. Perfect. I got my 2 serial number photos uploaded. I'm on to my next step. What date did you actually install this probe? So it's going to auto default to the day, today's date. It will always auto default to today's date. This probe last year was installed on June 8th. So we'll leave it as June 8th. You now need to check the site for suitability. And the boys will go through this when we're actually out in the field drilling this afternoon. The biggest thing is what you need to know about when you're in that field actually installing that probe is it suitable? And what it means by suitable is it in the middle of a slough accidentally? Is it in the middle of a low spot? Is it on a hilltop? Right? Some of those considerations that the final boots on the ground need to take into account. And again,
A sprayer track.
or a sprayer track. You don't need to, feel uncomfortable or intimidated by the fact that you may not be an agronomist, I think logistics makes sense to all of us, right? If the producer asks you to place it right in the middle of the entryway into the field, you know, that wouldn't really make sense, right? Because we would have to be constantly driving over it with machinery and things like that. You know, we're not going to place the probe just on the edge of the field because that's not going to be in a representative area. So those kinds of things that we're just confirming that that when we did the onboarding process sitting on our desk, okay, does that match up where we want it to be within the field? So is that site suitable? Yes. Is the probe location in between the drill rows? So when we're putting that probe into the ground, we need to put the probe directly between the two seed rows. Why we're doing that is so we get root activity from both sides of the row. So if our average row spacing is between 10 and 12 inches, we want to put that probe right in the middle of that seed row so we get good activity from the left side and good activity from the right side. If we're working on any wider row spacings or any maybe unique crops, say for example corn, or somebody who's seeded with a planter, that would be a good conversation to have with one of us at Crop Intelligence to talk about what's the optimal placement. In a situation like that with corn or a wider row crop, 15-inch rows, we want to put that probe just off the edge of the row. So if this is my seed bed, I have my seed rows, okay, and if this was 15-inch row spacing, okay, I would want to place my probe just off the row. That would be the ideal on a wider inch row spacing. But on a normal 10 or 12, my seed rows here, this is 10 inches, not to scale. We want to place that probe right in the middle of the row so we get root activity from this side and root activity from this side. Any questions about the site suitability for us new installers? No, perfect. Awesome. So our final step in this step number 3 is the site suitability. So if, say, for example, we were told to place the probe in a certain spot in the field, and we come to it and we see that it's actually a low spot, and ironically enough, there's a little bit of water pool there. We're going to have to make the executive decision in the field that we want to move that probe away from that site. If you have to move the probe more than 10 meters, we need to get a new line locate for that field. Okay, for safety, right? We want to make sure we're not drilling down in an area where we don't know what's underneath us. And that probe goes 1 meter in the ground, which depending on where you are, there could be something underneath there that deep, right? Well below the tillage layer, okay, but there could be pipeline down there, there could be power, who knows what, and to make sure that we're all being safe. If that probe has to move more than 10 meters away from its original intended spot, okay, we're going to have to get a new line locate to make sure that we're good to drill there. Questions on that? Step 4, okay, this is our soil texture step. This is the scariest step by far when we're installing the probe, because we're going to be asked to make assumptions about the hole that we're drilling and the dirt that we're pulling up. Okay, at every single one of the sensor depths at 10, 20, 30, 50, 70, and 100 centimeters, we are going to be asked to make a rough texture guess and also talk about how much moisture we think is at that specific depth. And again, it is okay if you don't have an agronomic background. What we're trying to do is give you a best guess. Give the individual who's going to be monitoring that site, monitoring that probe, a best guess. So what we're going to go ahead and do is now we're going to go through each sensor depth. So at 10 centimeters, you're drilling the hole and you're pulling up dirt, and you see that that first 10 centimeters is actually a lot lighter. Okay, it's more sandy. Okay, so you can actually go ahead and change that soil texture. Right now, it is set to a clay loam because that's what was set during onboarding, but you have the ability to change that texture. If you're someone who's new to soil texture settings, don't worry. If there's already textures in here, leave it as is unless you notice it's completely different, something like gumbo clay and beach sand. If we're having one of those that are completely different, okay, that would be a call or an insight to make a change. if they're already been set, what I would focus on is the moisture content. Okay, you grab that piece of dirt from 10 centimeters, you try and form it in a little ball. Does it stay together nicely? Okay, is it really tacky and easy to form? Okay, does it fall apart a little bit? Okay, if it's really tight and you can pack that ball of dirt in really, really tight, maybe it's a little bit on the wet side. Okay, if it stays together pretty nice, but it's a little crumbly still, normal. And again, if you're not comfortable with making these changes, if you notice something that's drastically different than what is here, that would recommend me to cue and make a change. And you may even want to put notes in here and say, as I was drilling the hole, I realized at 30 centimeters, the drill just stopped. And I had to go through a hard clay band to fight through that. There's a clay seam here in this field. Give that note, leave them that note. That lets whoever is monitoring that probe, it gives them a good idea of why you made that change and if it was valid. So at each one of those sensor depths, you can actually go through and make those notes and make that moisture content adjustment.
Is there a way to add a photo of the soil into each one of those notes?
Right now, there isn't, not at the soil type. What you can do is you can select and put it, the pictures in the site photos, if that was something that you wanted to do, but not on the soil texture ones. So once you've textured that, you've drilled your hole, you put it in the ground, you made your slurry, the technical aspect the boys are going to go through. But in order to finish that out, okay, we have a few more things that we need to do, not only for safety, okay, CLUBROOT protocol to finish out that full installation. So when we're setting up the station, we're on step 5. That's the checklist. What do we actually need to do to get that station upright in the field? First and foremost, the solar panel always has to be facing south. Okay, we're fortunate enough that on these realm stations, that solar panel is a little bit bigger, but on the smaller PESSL solar panels, we really have to be mindful that they're facing the proper direction. If you're not directionally gifted, most of our trucks have directions on them. You can use the compass app on your phone. There's a lot of different tools. If you're looking for some of those kind of quick, easy tools to use, ask Trevor and Andrew, they could help you all with that. So the solar panel has to be facing south. Okay, we need the rain bucket to be level. The wind sensor needs to be installed at the top of the wind post. Leaf wetness sensor on this specific station, it has a leaf wetness sensor, so it needs to be mounted on the bracket at a 70-degree angle. In your packs, you should have a protractor to make sure that it's exactly accurate. It's okay if it's not. That was a joke. You don't need a protractor in your toolkit, but that would be good if you had one. 70-degree angle facing northwest. You want that station to be powered up and calling in. Bury all of the cables. Again, we're going to do the full install this afternoon, right, boys? So we're going to go through all of this again. And then you're going to go ahead and you are going to take photos of the site. Again, it's important to take 2 different angles, because when we have issues in season, maybe the battery's not charging, maybe the leaf wetness sensor isn't reading properly, the hardware team can actually go through and take a look at these site pictures and help understand, hey, how come the wind speed's not even reading? Well, actually, it turns out that the wind speed just got missed during the install. Okay, and we can go back, and without having to make an additional trip out to the field, we can use these pictures to validate that. So we always want you to take 2 site photos, one from the northwest and one from the southwest. Okay, we want you to take them from those angles because that's where we want you to be installing the solar panel, the wind speed, and the leaf wetness sensor. We want to be able to see all of those sensors from those site pictures. So that's where you got full those pictures there. Confirm the installation. So this is the final step. Okay, who knows what CLUBROOT is? Quick show of hands. Okay, CLUBROOT protocol should be taken very, very, very seriously. Following today, we will share with you our crop intelligence CLUBROOT protocol, but you need to have a bleach solution It is highly suggested that you have a bleach solution in your truck. If you are going to be driving your truck out into multiple farmers' fields across this province, you need to make sure to do everything you can to minimize the transfer of dirt from field to field.
If you actually use spray nine instead of bleach, it won't wreck the paint and the rubber on your tires or your boots or anything. Okay, it's completely neutral, so you won't bleach your tires or anything if you use spray nine. It's a
Perfect.
solution.
So spray 9 or a bleach solution is what you need to be equipped with.
Industrial degreaser too. Feels covered.
Industrial what?
Industrial degreaser, so it's like a.
These are expensive options, you guys. Self-directed better have.
It is, no,
I'm like bleach and water. That's cheap.
degreasers, but they use it a car wash typically the first pass, so you just get in a big jug.
Oh, gotcha. Cool. I learned something new today. So degreaser, spray 9. Do you dilute the spray 9?
No,
Gotta go
and you can
full.
spray it on your leather boots and stuff. It won't bleach it or your clothes. It might be a little bit more expensive, but it's like $35 for each jug.
Yeah, it's only money. Gotta do it right.
Better than CLUBROOT.
Better than CLUBROOT. Exactly. So what I'll do is I'll share the CLUBROOT protocol with everyone so that you have that reference as well. But when we're doing that, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about that 50-to-1 bleach solution mixed with water. I use it in like my, we use it in like the little sprayer to spray out weeds in your yard. Mix it up in there. You have that for every site. And then you're spraying off the wheel wells and the tires at the bottom of the truck, your boots, all of those kinds of things. So that's a quick, easy way to satisfy that piece. The station has been installed and the probe has been installed. At this point in time, if you want to ensure that the station has been calling in, you can actually go ahead and scroll down to the bottom of the page and you can make that station, you can query that station and have it call in. So what it would then do is populate all of that station information below that query box. But because this station is currently offline, it's showing it in an error state. If you have an active online station, it is going to populate every single one of those sensors that has called in. So that's a way to check and satisfy step number 3. So once completed, you query the station, you see that it's now calling in and online. If you want to leave any general notes, you can go ahead and leave those. Those will be transparent throughout the entire season. So that's full visibility to anyone who logs into that station will see the notes that you left. Go ahead, add anything in you want there and hit save the zone. The install details have now been saved. And then now you can leave the field and move on. Any questions on that? Relatively straightforward.
You're moving your probe more than for within the 10 meters. What's telling you that there is not utility within 10 meters?
When they do the line locates, they guarantee you within a 10-meter radius.
So if we do have to move it within that 10 meters, we don't have to like
Tell us anything.
tell anything. Okay.
No, just maybe just make a note like, oh, I had to move it over a little bit
Gotcha.
because of whatever reason, but you know, it's totally safe. Our phones are plus or minus 30 feet for the GPS, so that's why the line locate companies have to do it within the 10 meters or 30 feet.
So to walk through what that looks like, once a station has come online, it takes about 5 to 7 days for that probe slurry to settle out. Okay, and then you will start to see root activity on a customer's graph. So for those of you,
Can you share?
yep, for those of you that haven't seen a soil moisture graph, a whole bunch. I'll show you what one looks like here. So once the station has come online and a probe slurry has settled out, you will start to see root activity on a soil moisture graph. So each one of these sensors is now correlating to one of those lines. Green line is 10 centimeters down. Yellow line is 20, 30, 50, 70, and 100 centimeters in the ground. So now we're starting to track that change in soil moisture and how our crop is actually utilizing moisture throughout the profile. What if you're worried this is the first time you've ever installed a probe and you don't want to do it wrong? How do we actually tell to make sure we've done a proper job? We will know within that first, as soon as that probe comes online, we will actually have indications on the graph. If there's any air pockets, if the probe hasn't been properly installed, we will see signatures of a poor install, really sharp increases or decreases in the soil moisture probe graph. So if you're the one out there actually completing the install, working with somebody who's in the office, checking that, they'll be able to validate that install for 5 to 7 days once you actually put it into the ground. Last year, I don't think there was more than 6 probes that were installed in the entire network. So it doesn't happen often. The teachers are so good. They get it right the first time. Any questions? There's no wrong questions, by the way.
Will we be looking at this? Like other than installation, to see if we're doing it wrong?
Yes, absolutely, Megan. So you'll be referring back to the soil moisture graph on probably a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis to help them kind of navigate the conversation of where root activity is, where is our crop growing and pulling from, and how we're utilizing that moisture.
Will we have to go out again?
If the installation is compromised, you will have to go out and reinstall the probe. It'll be fine. It'll be good. You'll get it. Any other category?
How resistant are these like probes? Like you're pushing into the ground. Do they kind of just fall in, or do you like push them in after you drill a hole?
So there's going to be resistance because what happens is air pockets get trapped underneath the probe. So we'll show you outside once we go through the whole process, and you yourself can do it by all means. So yeah, there will be resistance. They don't just fall in and stay there. And it's due to the consistency of the slurry that we fix. It has to be that consistency so that it makes proper contact with the probe. Yep.
Any other questions?
Your specific side you put the probe on in relation to the station? Yes.
Trevor.
Usually the east side is how that works, but it's laid out in the document here. It's the best representation of the area in ProGrow or in the CDO. Yeah. Use your discretion.
We have a vendor group that installs every single one of their probes to the north. That is what they know. All of their stations and their probes are in that north fashion so that they know that every time they approach the field, they know that's what their customers can expect. They've agreed that as a company, they're going to do it that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. We will now break for 10 minutes. Grab a coffee, you use the washroom. So washrooms, men's and women's are just down the hall here on the left-hand side. If you need water, inside the kitchen here, there's an RO machine for water. There's coffee, there's donuts. We'll reconvene back at about 10:15. So let's go for about 10 minutes. We'll be back here at 10:15 and the hardware team is going to take over. So we will see you all in 10 minutes, 10:15.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're gonna get going here on the hardware overview. Again, my name's Trevor. This is Andrew over to the side here. Yeah, we'll get started on the hardware overview of the install. program here, so. So the platform integration that we have currently consists of 4 different types of stations. The REALMFIVE station, the John Deere conversions, which you guys have seen, or some of you have seen, the PESSL field climate, and the Davis WeatherLink stations right now. So we do have the ability to integrate other stations into our network, but we don't, these are the 4 currently that we have existing. So the REALMFIVE Davis weather station, which is to your guys' left here, my right. Your standard sensors here is your air temp, humidity, air pressure, your rain, wind speed and wind direction, optional sensors, obviously your soil moisture probe, leaf wetness sensor, soil temperature sensor, and solar radiation. The REALMFIVE stations come in 2 different configurations. One is a weather front, the one on the left. Make sure I'm looking at this right. The one on the left is the weather front, which is a gateway enabled unit, which talks wirelessly with the flexes or the soil moisture probe. And the one on the right, which is classified as the cell front, which has the option of a wired soil moisture probe, showing the SDI 12 with the probe pigtail there. This does have the ability to be wireless as well, but it doesn't currently have it. We can have that over the air updated so that it's gateway enabled as well. So you can have both aspects. You can have a wired probe if the station needs to be in the field, and you can have a flex and a probe in a different location as well, wirelessly. So either one of these can be equipped with 3G or 4G modems, and their standard call-in times are 15 minutes. With the REALMFIVE equipment, the gateways, the fronts have an LED system on there, one on the left, one on the right. So the LED on the left-hand side of the front is the RSSI, or Received Signal Strength Indicator. The lights go from white being the best signal strength indicator to red on the being the worst. The light on the right is the status. So there's multiple different colors. Your initial boot up sequence is your multicolor rapid flash, red, blue, green. Then it gets into searching for GPS signal, which is a cyan or a light blue. Then to what it's at right now, which is searching for a cellular signal as solid green. Then if the station doesn't have cellular coverage or the SIM card is not activated, you will have that solid green go to solid yellow, then solid red, stating that there is no connectivity. So basically there's an error. So if this ever happens, obviously double check that your SIM card is connected and you physically have cellular coverage in the area that you're working on. If it does connect, you're going to get a flashing green light. It means it is connecting to the cellular network and you're uploading data. In this instance, the flex or the rain tipper is tipping, you're going to get a magenta green flash or a dark blue flash indicating that the rain bucket is tipping and or it's gaining data from a wireless device as well. So
you won't see that blue flash until the solid green goes away.
Correct.
I don't think this station's activated.
Correct. It doesn't have a SIM card in it. Next, we have our John Deere soil moisture probe. Alana showed it here and we've got it to the side there. Comes standard with the 6 sensors, all at 10, 20, 30, 50, 70, and 100, showing the internals there as well. Those silver rings are the actual sensors, and that's where your sensor locations are. We have the John Deere Flex device, which I think Andrew's got here as well. So this is the wireless device that the probe connects to, and this communicates wirelessly with the gateway device. That Flex device head, the front of it must face the wireless or the station so that it can communicate properly. And that is utilized when the station is on the edge of the field and the Flex and the probe are located up to 500 meters within the field. You can technically have multiple probes communicating with one weather station, and the Flex itself calls in once an hour, providing that soil moisture data. Again, up to 500 meter range, and there are the LED sequences and colors as well, which are located inside of the front box. front face box. The John Deere REALMFIVE conversion station, so these were introduced in 2014 and have all since been converted over to have the REALMFIVE communication as of 2020. The picture there showcases what the large John Deeres look like. Again, your standard sensors, your temp, humidity, air pressure, rain, wind speed, wind direction, and then optional sensors, soil moisture probe, leaf wetness, soil temperature, and solar radiation. The PESSL weather stations. So there's two different types of PESSL weather stations that we currently use and that are in the network. The IMT, which is on the bottom, and the Eco D3, which is on the top. They're standard sensors again. They're all pretty much the same: air temp, humidity, rain, optional sensors, soil moisture, leaf wetness, soil temperature, wind speed, and wind direction. For correct call-in times and to conserve power, the login settings, measurement settings, and fixed transfer interval are all set this way: 5 minutes, 15, and 30. So that station is going to take a measurement every 5 minutes. It's going to log those additional sensor readings every 15 minutes, and it's going to transfer all that data that it's saved every 5 minutes in that 30-minute call-in time frame. Here are some pictures of the basic sensors on most of the stations. So you've got PESSL leaf wetness, you've got a decagon leaf wetness, soil temperature sensors, wind speed sensors on the right here. Your ultrasonic wind speed is the double sort of bubble looking unit, and then you've got your mechanical wind speed, wind direction sensors as well. Yes, question?
Isn't that an antenna?
No, that one is not an antenna.
What's the difference?
So the antenna is actually, it looks like a single bubble on some of the IMT stations or eco weather stations. So any of the ones that look like it's a stacked bubble, that is the ultrasonic wind speed, wind direction sensors. Any question? Any questions? Any other questions so far?
And you know how there's like the arm on the PESSLs that like comes out.
Yeah. On
Which
the,
sensor has to be north and which one has to be south?
so that is,
There's a picture coming out.
yeah, I was gonna say, I've got a slide for that for sure. So yeah, it does depict a certain direction because of the way they're set. So we'll go over the required tools here for proper installation for the equipment. Obviously your phone, you need that for your installs, like Alana alluded to there in her presentation. Your standard screwdrivers, Phillips, slotted, Robertson, wrenches, 7/16 and 1/2 inch. So all of the REALMFIVE equipment is all 7/16 equipped, and then most of the other equipment is all 1/2 inch. When it comes to different equipment, so needle nose pliers, side cutters, multimeter, torpedo level for leveling the stations over top of the rain buckets. You'll need pry bar, small spade, post pounder, which makes things definitely easy when you're putting in posts for certain stations. Small step ladder, that's key for me because I am technically vertically challenged. So yeah, I'm not blessed with height. So cable ties, rubber gloves, coveralls if you choose to wear them, the CLUBROOT disinfectant in pump sprayer like we spoke about. And then your gas powered auger. So we utilize this steel auger. It has got a 18-inch extension onto a 2-foot auger bit as well, so that we can drill down to the 1 meter depth needed. A heavy duty paint mixing bit or a cement mixing bit to mix up your slurry. Obviously your 5-gallon pails for water and mixing the slurry as well. And then clean water for cleaning up your site and your tools, plus garbage. We also utilize a sheet of plywood with a 4-inch hole drilled in it so that we're not compacting or tramping the area that has been seeded. So the less impaction we can put over top of the seeded area, the better when we're doing the install, because you will be right over top of everything. Any questions? Next, Alana spoke about the Crop Intelligence app. We'll just showcase it quickly here again. Obviously, she walked through it very well. Just a very nice checklist going through the whole process and the steps to do it properly. If you follow this guideline, you're going to basically get it right every single time. just want to quickly touch base on the Bell Jasper website here. I hope everybody has access to this. Most of you will, if not, the individual who's going to be activating all your weather stations will have that here, because we need to make sure that the SIM cards are all activated so that the stations themselves can call in properly. Okay, we're gonna get into the assembly of a station, unless there's questions. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can I use a PESSL leaf wetness sensor on a ROM station?
No.
Okay.
You cannot. You can use the Decagon leaf wetness sensor, which is can be used across the different types of stations. But no, the PESSL leaf wetness sensor is specifically for a PESSL station.
Just because it's a lot more expensive, so I was wondering if I could use the REALMFIVE one, but I can't. Or I can't use them interchangeably.
So you can use the one that is used on the REALMFIVE for a PESSL,
Oh, I can.
but you can't use a PESSL one for a REALMFIVE. So
Ends the same.
they're different.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so the Decagon one, which looks like a leaf. I had a slide for that. On the bottom left-hand side here, that one can be used on any of the stations, any of the types of stations, and the one up top here is specifically used on the PESSL stations only. Any other questions? Quiet group.
Oh, it's tough.
Okay, so I'm just gonna assemble the Davis weather station here to our side. So basically, when you're unboxing this station, we have already gone through and PDI'd the station. So Andrew's got the document in front of you. So we have tested, fully assembled that station and tested every single sensor that's been attached to it. This should give you the reassurance that when you plug it in, power it up in the field, everything is going to work properly, because we have gone through the motions to make sure that everything tests and is accurate. We've calibrated it, we've set it all up, and it is all ready to function once it's all in the field. So as it stands, he's gonna unbox the station. It comes a little bit disassembled because it obviously won't fit fully on the in the box the way it is. So you have your two parts, your anemometer and your station with the weather front on it. All the sensors are connected to the weather front already. Like I said, we do test everything before it's ever sold to anybody or boxed up. So everything is set and ready to go. What you will have to do is go ahead and install the anemometer cups normally and the wind vane. And you'll have to put together the solar panel.
So we put the cups on ahead of time. The end just slides into the base. The cable, there's little slots to feed it through. There'll be two bags of hardware in there. One is for the solar panel, the other one's for the station. But yeah, even before you do the station install, first thing would be take your phone, just double check you got a signal out there. If there's one bar, you can't load a website, weather station's probably not gonna work. Otherwise, yeah, pulling up the install form, verify you got the right equipment, the serial numbers match. You can snap those pictures and upload them. And then, yeah, even before you do the station, I would put up the tripod first. Weather stations, they'll either have a tripod like this or just a 6-foot post. If it's the post, take your pounder, put it in the ground there.
Andrew's got a tripod behind him. Like he said, he likes to install the tripod first. I'm a little different. I'll set everything up on the back of the truck. I'll assemble the weather station, then I'll set up the tripod. However you guys choose to do it, definitely. So you'll get into a rhythm once you guys start doing it there. So the tripod must have the ring attached to it. I think it's laying on the floor there. So this ring attaches to the legs on the tripod and secures the legs so that they can't spread out. Once we ratchet it down to the bin anchor that is going to be attached as well. Yeah.
Bin anchor would go in the ground first, under the tripod, screwed in.
Yes.
So that's,
So once the bin anchor is installed, in the ground, and it's an 18-inch bin anchor that's spun directly into the ground. This is all mounted and ratchet strapped down to the bin anchor, so unless it's physically hit, it's not going to blow over. So yes, it's very durable and, it takes a good bump with the equipment to back it over. Which is not happening, sadly enough, that's fine. So yeah, so that's the ring, positioning inside of the tripod there, so that it's all stable and the legs aren't gonna move out.
another tip for installing this ring, if you put one in when you're by yourself on the side and it's flipped upside down, then you can actually spin it around and start to do the other two. So when you're on your own, that makes it significantly easier. You don't need two people to actually do it. So.
So yes, so once you've installed your bin anchor, you've installed your tripod there, you mount your tripod top hat on there, because your station is going to mount onto that as well. So once you start your physical installation, you're gonna open your CROPINTEL app, the install screen, go through your main menu. Like Andrew said, verify all your equipment serial numbers, verify the area physically has adequate cellular coverage, because again, these are all cellular devices. They will not work if you don't have cellular coverage.
So your bin anchor is gonna be in the grounds and this strap goes right up over top. And then it connects right into the bin anchor. So once you've got the bin anchor in the ground and both of these straps are attached to the bin anchor, you will actually take this, drop it down the middle, and you will ratchet strap on the top. Okay, that's gonna hold the unit from falling or have any wind impact. If you hit it with a piece of equipment, it's gonna fall over. So that's something that's definitely gonna happen, but you need to make sure that you've got that in the ground solid, and this strap actually just comes right up over top. Just like that right there, and you can ratchet it right down to the side.
And we'll go through the full installation outside, so you guys will get definitely see how it is. We'll install the bin anchor and. Thank you.
Anemometer goes into the base. There's a screw that goes in, secures it. So solar panel and its mounting bracket. Python. And the solar panel hardware bag. There'll be a couple of little black push pins.
And that will happen in the field, so be very wary. Those are small black plastic connectors, so if you do drop them, make sure that you find them because you are going to need them. So when installing this sort of stuff out in the field, you're dealing with black dirt, and a lot of our items are dark colored, so be very careful.
Solar panel secures with what's pretty much just an exhaust clamp. Add that over the post, grab a wrench.
Make sure when you're installing solar panel here, obviously it's facing south. I tend to not always tighten it up all the way because I may have to move it up just up underneath the weather station as well, because you want that solar panel as high as possible as well, so that it captures all that sunlight.
Right, with the solar panel on, the other hardware bag has the U-bolts to attach the station and the anemometer.
If you do choose ahead of time before you leave to attach these two together, the anemometer and the station actually attach together and they will slide down over top of the pole as well too. If you want to save yourself some time in the field while you're out, you can actually put those two U-clamps inside of this here as well too, and then this will just slide down over top of the pole as well too. Okay. Are there any questions in the chat that we've seen come through? No.
Roughly,
Hour.
yeah, so roughly hour to an hour and a half is what most of the texts take to do that properly. Don't rush it, definitely, because you're gonna mess something up. Take your time, do it right, and then you won't have to go back to that station. Correct something that may have gotten missed.
There's the U-bolt, a little backing plate to go on the inside, washer, lock washer and nut.
Slides right through the housing there, and you can tighten the bolts up on the other side as well too. And then there's gonna be the exact same thing for the anemometer. That's gonna slip straight through the housing on the back of it. You'll be able to tighten the bolts on the back of it as well too. And both of those then will pair together to slide down over top of this pole here as well.
Right. Most of the time, I'll set this sort of stuff up prior to going out to the field. Again, I don't like dropping things on the ground and trying to search for them. So I'll do all of this sort of basic assembly prior to being out in the field, or I'll put it on the back of the field if it's a brand new station. Or back
Coming a
of
little closer,
the back of the truck.
coming a little closer and
Yeah. Most of the stations, if you guys are setting up that have been previously installed, they'll have all of this hardware already on it. So all you're going to be doing is pulling it out of the box and putting it onto the weather station. So like Kyle's mentioned here, the weather station, the rain bucket here will go on first, and then the anemometer actually fits into a slot just right on the back of the mounting bracket here. Up top. And you have to overlap them, so you kind of have to lift the rain back bucket up and slide the bolt into the other groove so that they mount together and lock, and then they can both be slid down. You want it at the top of the weather station or at the top of the pole on that, just basically the height of the rain bucket bracket.
Okay. Tighten this up.
And again, sorry.
If there's somebody who's not muted, do you maybe want
that's Jalen.
Please, thank you. So obviously, just note the orientation of the weather station, right? We're crooked now. We're gonna straighten everything out so that it's all attached properly. Again, you want to bring that solar panel up as high as you can, so that it's gonna capture the sun throughout the day. All of the REALMFIVE stations also have a site level, a little level bubble on the inside. You're going to utilize that and a torpedo level to make sure that everything is level once you install all the hardware and ratchet strap station down to the bin anchor. So please note on these ones here, you can trust the bubble site level. On some of the other stations, such as the PESSL ones, they've been deemed inaccurate. So always use your tribe or your level on top of the rain bucket with all the PESSL stations.
Also in the hardware bag is some bird spikes. They go all around and there's one in the middle. They're important to have, otherwise the bucket will fill up with dirt and you won't get rain readings. Doesn't take long.
if you're in the fields and you're walking by a station, if you're out doing maintenance or something else as well too, this one in the middle, just a quick quarter turn and it will come out as well too. Make sure that this is cleaned off. It will get full of things as well too throughout the season. So you can put it back in and quarter turn puts it back into the bucket as well too.
Yeah. Also, you can take the rain bucket itself off with just a quick quarter turn as well. So.
And another bird spike at the top of the solar panel.
Making sure that you're not over top of any of the lines on the actual solar panel so that you're not covering up any of the actual charging pieces to that solar panel. Great.
Am I missing anything, Trevor, or plug it in?
Yeah, so basically, once the station is been anchored down, you're gonna double check your levelness again, because the levelness of this station is absolutely key to the rain bucket functioning properly. So you're going to be checking that level of that station multiple times. So you will basically put your ratchet strap over top of your station. You're gonna tighten it up and you're gonna double check your levelness, because what's gonna happen is that station is gonna sink. So you want to make sure when you leave that station and that site that everything is absolutely level.
There's a couple of screws at the bottom of the tripod. You can adjust the legs to get the height right.
Yeah.
Get it level. Otherwise, take the extra cables, some zip ties, tie it up. Just so they're not dangling around.
Yep, exactly. Make sure everything is nice and tight to the pole. Any sensors that have to be run down the legs, they're zip tied there, buried into the ground so that rodents aren't knowingly chewing on them and seeing them and stuff like that. Any other questions so far? This is the basic REALM-5 installation. Yes, Alana.
What if originally the station that the customer purchased, he or she or they didn't order it with the leaf wetness, but they want to add it after? How do I install that when I need the field?
Very good question. So the way that that is installed is the front device comes off of the rain bucket there. Andrew's going to slide this up. It is actually just locked in. You're going to always power off the unit before you go ahead and do that.
If you are ever going to be digging around inside of here, you should have your ESD grounding wrist strap.
Correct.
I hope everybody's seen those, the blue straps. You can clip it onto the bin anchor. That's a good grounding point here. But for now, I'll just be careful not to touch anything on the inside. There'll be a port labeled leaf wetness. You can feed the cable in through the back here. There's a hole. Just plug it in. It'll start working.
Yeah, we made the sensor, the configuration, just basically plug and play into it as an RJ11 or like a phone jack connector. So you just clip it in and make sure that it's secure. And then you're going to slide the front back onto the backing there so that it's all nice and tucked in. Making sure no wires are exposed or pinched in that aspect as well.
There is no power switch on this front. So when you plug the solar panel in, that's when it knows that it's going to turn itself on. When you unplug the solar panel, that's when it knows that it's turned off. So when Trevor said that make sure to always power down before you go and open that side of the box, just unplug the solar panel and it will make sure that the power is off on that front as well.
Find us what ESD training is, why it's important, and what happens if you're not grounded.
Static electricity kills electronics. If it gets to the point where you can even feel a shock, that's thousands and thousands of volts.
Yeah.
You can damage it even if there's not a noticeable shock.
So again, the electronics inside of this device are cellular, just like our phones. We don't have access to the inside of our phones for good reason, because we can wreck them just by touching them. We walk on carpet or anything else, our clothing itself will create a static charge, and we discharge that by grounding ourselves, which on any electronic device that will destroy those sort of things. So something as simple as, touching the modem in there without being grounded with your wrist strap can definitely damage that unit and put it deactivated, basically. So anytime you're touching the internals of any of the devices, you have to be grounded with your wrist strap to either the bin anchor or the poles in the fields as well. So
Show of hands, who's seen that blue wrist strap already? Okay, we'll get a couple more out to the South Country crew here as well too, and make sure everybody's got one as well too in the truck, because that front, I want to be very clear, this should not be opened without being grounded with that wrist strap on. Okay.
And unless there's something physically wrong, you guys won't ever have to get inside that.
Yeah.
So other than replacing a cable or a sensor, if something's chewed off, the tech going out to that will have all of the ESD training and documentation so they can safely do that. So, and or yourselves.
Yeah, and if the front ever is off, just make sure you slide it back on all the way. It should click into place.
Yeah.
It's otherwise they can loosen off and you'll get water inside and the front is ruined.
The underside has got a locking place where it slides open. You can hear the click there. So that locks it on.
It's at no risk of like buzzing me and giving me like any kind of physical damage. It would just damage the box, correct?
Correct. Yeah. You won't harm yourself, but you will definitely wreck a very expensive piece of equipment. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
That's go up on all the field, because I forget you said. It's very, that's the site that shows.
Okay.
Would I speak to?
So you would contact your partner or whoever's handling your installs. So if South Country is doing that, so whoever your service writer is, or you can contact myself as well or Andrew. Yeah, so when it comes to solar panel or cellular signal, if you're having problems calling me in the field, it's probably gonna be having issues as well. So yeah, that sort of stuff should be planned out previously. If there is any questions of where the install is going to happen and it's a brand new install, we can definitely verify that there is cellular coverage in those areas. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
The antenna, what's that for?
That's for communicating with a flex device or a wireless rain bucket. Not used for cellular.
Where is the actual cellular antenna located?
It's inside the front. They almost look like a little strip of paper. You probably won't even see them. They're tucked away behind the board.
Correct. They're on either side of the weather front here, the left and right hand side. And like Andrew said, that the black antenna at the bottom should be facing straight down because that is how the wireless device, the flex, or a irrigation bucket will communicate with this device up to 500 meters. Thank you. Okay, we'll keep going.
Steve just brought up as well too. He said, don't forget fun with the flags. And that's probably a good point as well too, is there is a marking flag that we do ask that you put out with these as well too, so that they're not hit when they're in the field. A couple of things with that marking flag. You want to make sure that it's far enough away from the front of the weather station. Don't put it in the top of the weather station. If that flag rattles around all day, these fronts actually have a feature where you can tap 3 times on the front of them and they will actually wake up and they will show the status. So the same thing happens with the flex. If you've got the flex, the 4-foot pole in the ground and you put that marking flag in the top of that pole, it will sit there and rattle and it will kill the batteries on the flex because it thinks you're tapping on.
Yes.
Okay, so make sure that the marking flags are set 3 to 4 feet away from it.
5 to 6.
5 to 6 feet.
Minimum
away.
5 to 6 feet away. Yeah.
And we'll make sure we get that set up too.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, so definitely they have a wake up feature. So if you are ever in the field and you want to make sure that everything is functioning, you can tap on them. The LEDs will flash briefly, showing you that it's still powered up and it's still functioning. You can also query the station on your app to make sure that all the data is coming through as well. So if you're ever physically in the field, checking the station, you want to make sure that you're cleaning solar panels, double checking the rain bucket, making sure that it's physically functioning, and hitting that query to make sure that there's current data flowing through as well. We're going to move on quickly, the PESSL station. So same sort of thing, you're verifying the station is level, and using the torpedo level to make sure on the rain bucket that everything is correct. Again, don't rely on that bubble inside of the stations. They are not accurate, sadly enough. Again, you're going to position the solar panel facing south, install the ultrasonic wind sensor, which is shown on the left-hand side here. It does have a little north indicator on the underside. Make sure that is pointed in the north direction. The mechanical wind speed, wind direction sensor. So north for your wind direction sensor and south for your wind speed sensor as well. This is also very helpful with the photos are very helpful with this because we can look at this and say, you know, hey, that was installed backwards, or in some cases even upside down. We have noticed that a wind sensor was not installed correctly. We can quickly look at the photos and say, you know, we goofed up, have to send a tech back out there or somebody back out there to correct the situation. So yeah, so the IMT one here is the one with the long arm. You do have another secondary arm for your mechanical wind speed and wind direction, which has to be located and positioned in the right direction as well. The John Deere weather station here, again, you're going to install your bin anchor. You're going to place the John Deere station, which is very large and bulky, on the top of the tripod post. You're going to ensure the tripod post pin, which holds it from spinning in the wind or moving, is installed. and that the rain bucket again is level with the torpedo level. Position your solar panel facing south and at a 45-degree angle, sorry, and position the anemometer as well over top of the solar panel facing south. Any questions on those two there? So the station install for the leaf wetness sensor. So actually, I don't think you have a leaf wetness sensor. The Decagon leaf wetness sensor is the one we're depicting here. This has actually got a bracket that we built. It is located on the fence post stake that we use, and it is at a specific angle, which is 30 to 45 degrees. So that mimics the aspect of a leaf in the field. It just takes 2 screws to mount it onto that bracket and 2 more screws to mount the bracket onto the fence post and install it. This bracket and that sensor can be mounted at 12 to 14 inches off the ground or anywhere in the crop canopy at a later date. So soil temperature sensors, if they're equipped, install the soil temperature sensor next to the seed row, west of the station is what normally is done. And digging a 2 to 3 inch hole, deep hole, and installing that and burying the cable and the sensors back to the station. And that is mainly done for rodent damage. Rodents tend to chew on anything they get their hands on, and if there's a cable in the field, they will definitely do that. Yes, so there's the Decagon leaf wetness sensor. The Decagon leaf wetness sensor has got a top and a bottom. The way the bracket is situated, it can only be installed one direction on the one side. It does have grooves on the top so that you can see it, and then the rating is on the bottom as well.
Yeah.
Andrew has explained.
The ESD wrist straps, so really you're just trying to ground yourself, put it on, and you can clip it on to the bin anchor. This one doesn't have the clip, but when we send them out, they will.
Next is the probe install. So very key that you do drive over the probe installation site. Again, compaction and the seed that has already been planted, that crop has been planted. You don't want to be constantly driving over it, making compaction in the ground, causing that seed to have difficulty growing up through that. So you're going to select the location to install that probe. That is a good representative sample of the field. So not a steep angle like Alana said, not a hilltop, not a slough, or other field anomalies. You're going to look around the site that has been you've been directed to and make that educated call that it's a good location. Again, making sure that you're not within 20 feet of sprayer tracks or tractor tracks. Again, compaction is an issue, and making sure that you're installing that between the drill rows. If the station is in the field with the probe, you will be roughly about 5-6 feet west of the station in the same location. If not, the station will be on the edge of the field and the flex and the probe will be in the location in the field there. Clear any debris away from the 6-inch area around the probe. So straw, chaff, rocks, anything that you see, make sure that it's a clean area to drill the hole. You're going to lay down your sheet of plywood. We use a 4x4 sheet of plywood, 1/2 inch thick, just so we can set all our tools on and we're not, again, impacting that site too much. You're going to bring all your tools, your pail, your slurry, and everything else, set it on the plywood so that, again, everything's on that one location and you're not disturbing anything. Any questions so far? So what you're going to do is drill a 2-inch pilot hole with the gas-powered auger. You're going to drill, and actually I'm going to step back a second. We always mark the depth on our probe length on our drill so that we know how deep we have to drill. So I just use electrical tape. I measure the depth plus another 3 inches so that I'm deep enough with the probe install going through that whole process, because you don't want to get out there and drill most of the way and set the probe in and it is sticking out of the ground too far. So mark on your manual auger and on your gas powered auger bits the lengths that you need so that you know when you're going to hit that depth and you aren't drilling excessively or not drilling enough in that same instance. So you have to make sure that the hole for the probe is drilled straight up and down. You don't want to be on an angle. It's just not going to function properly. You want to make sure that the top 4 inches of the hole isn't broken out or crumbly. You're going to use the manual auger, which we will show you guys outside as well, how to go ahead and clean that after that main gas powered auger is used. Yes.
So just, we put the slide up on this before as well too, that showed all of the different tools. That slide was very busy as well, but we are gonna go through this outside as well, but just inside here for a second while we're going over this. This auger here, so this is a steel gas powered auger. So the auger has a auger bit and it has an extension that goes on the top as well too. Okay, so one of the things that you want to make sure that's absolutely critical that you have before you go to the field is you've got this bit here along with the extension. If you don't have the extension, you're not going to get all the way in the ground. Okay, so make sure you've got those, that gas powered auger on the top. What are you going to need for it that you need to take with you before you go? Pins. That's a great point. Absolutely. What's the second thing you're going to need? Gas. That's an obvious one, but just make sure you've got some in the truck. They sell that steel moto mix at most of our dealerships. That's usually the best stuff to use in those. Just have a couple extras in the truck because you're going to run out at some point. You're going to say, I'm way too far away. This is going to be way too big of a problem. So that's a key point here for when you're actually putting that in. Now, the second thing, from a safety perspective, we want to make sure that you've got steel toe boots on, you've got eye protection, you've got hearing protection if required, and you have your gloves on as well too. Okay, so when you're putting this down, you are operating piece power equipment. Let's make sure that we've got those pieces on so that we've got ourselves protected as we're doing that as well. So what's this one right here called? Dutch auger.
Dutch auger.
Essentially, right? Yeah. This is your hand auger. Okay, so each of these hand augers comes with 3 pieces. When you take it to the field, you're probably going to have it all assembled already, but there is a long extension, there is a handle, and then there is the bit that goes on the bottom. So if you order the kit from us, you get all 3 of those pieces in the kit. The other thing with the bin anchor install, so this one's actually broken off here, as you can see. But the bin anchor has a small spiral on the bottom of it that actually goes into the ground. What's the best way to put this into the ground? Pardon me? Pry bar, absolutely, that works perfectly. If you do like, we also sell a steel drill that will drill this thing into the ground for you about most of the way, and then you take the pry bar and finish it off as well too. But this, with the pry bar, put the pry bar through here and you just spin it into the ground once you've got it manually started. How deep does this go in the ground?
Basically 12 inches.
12 inches, okay. So this is the one that we want to make sure is in there and fixed on the side as well too. When you're going to the field, if you're going to do multiple installs, approximately how much water do we need per install to mix the slurry?
Couple cups
Couple cups
for the slurry.
for the slurry?
But you're gonna need water for cleanup and additional holes.
Yeah.
So tend to take a couple 5-gallon pails full of water on multiple installs. So if I was to do 4 or 5 installs that day, I'm gonna take at least 2, maybe even 3 5-gallon pails of clean water so that I can clean up tools in between, mix my slurries, everything else. So.
And so what's the second bucket here for? Mixing your slurry. Good deal. So this second bucket here, as you're drilling out, why are we putting this plywood on the ground? We're not trampling it. That's a great point. No compaction. What's the second thing that it actually is really effective for? Collecting dirt, right? So when you're doing your soil texturing and you're going down your couple inches, you bring that auger up, you tap it on the side, you've got a significantly better sample of what's actually been in the hole. So when you put that slurry together, which Trevor's going to talk about here in a second as well too, you've got a little bit more of a good sample to be able to mix that all together as you put it into the ground. Are we missing anything else from the tooling perspective that we talked about before that we haven't talked about here yet?
We'll show off all the tools in a little more detail when we're outside and got them in front of us. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, so like Kyle alluded to here, the slurry mix. So again, when you're drilling, you're sampling that soil, you're making notes all the way along. You're using that soil as a representative to mix your slurry. So you're gonna make sure there's no rocks, there's no debris, there's no organic material, foreign organic material in that for the slurry. So you're gonna scoop that into the pail. You're gonna mix to about a third of a pail of slurry to the consistency of essentially pancake batter. It can't be too runny and it can't be too thick. It physically has to flow into the hole, but it can't be runny so that it's just liquidy mess. Because what's gonna happen is all that liquid's gonna dry out and you're gonna have gaps around the probe. And you're gonna have a bad probe reading and that probe will need to be reinstalled after the fact. So yeah, so definitely while you're drilling and you're making notes of all the types of dirt and all the consistency of dirt, you're gonna collect it on that plywood because that hole is drilled in the center of the plywood. And we've got a little video here showing the drilling. And I'll play it for you guys here to show you what it's like. This tech right here is fairly tall. So when I'm drilling a hole, I actually start without the extension on because I can't really reach that high up. So I'm vertically challenged. Like I said before, I will start with the extension off. I'll drill the hole to the depth of the first bit, and then I'll put the extension on. This gentleman here is tall enough. He can drill all the way and pull that auger all the way up and out and do his sampling. Any questions so far?
And then just taking note of what the soil is like as it comes up at different depths, so you can log that in the app after.
So this video is a bit of a trick question. What is he not doing?
Yeah, so basically when you're drilling, you should be drill down to the 10 centimeter sensor, pull it out. You're gonna soil sample down to the 20 centimeter, down to the 30 centimeter. And each time you hit that depth, you're pulling it out to sample the soil. So this video is technically just for the drill aspect, but yes, he should be pulling it back out, checking that soil texture, each depth for sure. Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, if you tried to do it that way in the ground we got outside here, where there's a lot of clay, it wouldn't go too well. That auger is going to get stuck. You're going to be spinning it by hand to try and get it out.
Yeah, if the auger ever does get stuck, you basically have to spin it in reverse. There are no reverse directions on these augers. So you are manually turning that auger so that it will spin the bit again so that you can pull it all the way out. And you guys will all get to try it. By all means, we'll have lots of time. You guys can all drill some holes and have lots of fun.
Do you have any tips for installing probes into like hard and really hard rocky ground?
Try not to pick that location. Well, that's going to be a tricky install for sure. We have had several sites where the location that was selected, they started to drill a hole, hit rocks halfway down. They had to move by about 3-4 feet. 5 times later, they eventually got a hole drilled. So yes, you can run into a situation where you definitely hit rock bed, gravel bands underneath. So it's just a lot of trial and error, but you really don't know what's underneath there until you actually drill. So if that's happening, maybe not the best location for a probe. Maybe you need to discuss it. And yes,
I would caution against putting large amounts of water down the hole to soften it up. It's just gonna take longer for that probe to settle out and for that moisture to dissipate. I know in the past that has worked at some sites. Just a note that you need to maybe work with whoever's selecting that site, if they know from years previous. Ultimately, if you've been successful installing a probe in a field or a zone or an area before, you should have success again. If you're going to a brand new site, a brand new field, a brand new customer, a little bit of conversation with them is helpful too. But like I said, I would caution against throwing a whole pile of water down the hole just to quote unquote soften it up. That's a bit of a slippery slope as well.
I'll show you the manual auger here, the Dutch auger at the high speed, basically, and mixing the slurry. So that's absolutely way too fast. So yeah, so basically he's taking that manual Dutch auger and he's just basically cleaning any loose debris out of the hole, so that when you slide that probe down and in, you've got that hole all nice and cleaned up. And then he went ahead and started to mix the slurry from the soil that was at the capture pit.
You'll be sending us with the stuff to do this stuff,
Yes,
they do their own stuff.
Yeah, South Country has all that stuff.
and if you're missing any of the pieces, definitely get the right equipment to do the job properly, for sure. So yeah, so in the crop intelligence app, you've already marked your soil texture and made all your comments is in there as well. So like I said, you're gonna clean your hole with the manual auger, remove all the slurry. You do want to dry fit your probe into the hole to make sure that it is actually deep enough. I also then take that probe and leave it in the hole while I'm mixing the slurry, because the last thing you want is anything to fall down the hole and now you can't get it. So I leave that probe in the hole until I'm done mixing the slurry, because then no dirt can fall in there, no tools can fall in there, and it's just sitting there out of the way, not being stepped on in that aspect as well. Again, you're gonna mix the slurry, smooth texture, again, no rocks, no foreign debris, consistency like heavy pancake mix. Most of us have probably made pancakes or seen pancakes. It has to flow out of the bucket, but not super fast. So. Again, you're gonna fill the whole 2/3 with slurry. So basically, in the 5-gallon pail, if you've mixed about a third of a pail, you're gonna have essentially enough slurry mix to pour down that hole. Too much is okay, because you can always pour some down, test fit the probe. If there isn't enough slurry to come out and contact the probe properly all the way around, you can always pull that probe back out, pour more slurry mix down in until it's situated properly. That probe does have to sit completely flush, and actually Andrew will grab that probe right up against the underside of the green body on that probe. So the dirt has to come right up to the underside of that probe, and the slurry mix has to as well. So if there's too much slurry and it's kind of spilling out over top, you need to make sure that's cleaned away and cleared away from the top side of that. It just needs to come completely flush and level with the ground. Also, when installing the probe, always install the probe cable first, because that makes sure that there is no dirt, debris, or slurry mix getting up into the connector when you insert it down into the hole with the slurry. The slurry can bubble up and the air pockets coming up will push slurry up. If that gets into the connector, it may not allow the connection to be seated properly, and then you have a probe that's not going to read properly as well.
And the connector, it does click into place. You probably can't hear it from here, but yeah, make sure it's all the way on.
It is a push connector. It does have threads, but you're not going to spin it on or spin it off. So you push it on. It does have a indicator, a void that you have to line up. So you push it all up into the body. And then if you have to disconnect that, you pull it straight down to disconnect that cable. Any questions so far? So yeah, so when we're installing the probe, where you're going to install the probe slowly, you don't want to force it into the hole too fast, because all you're going to do is cause air pockets to get stuck underneath the probe. You're going to be twisting the probe back and forth about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch turn to try and get those air pockets that are technically underneath there to come up and escape out around the probe, so that slurry mix makes a complete contact around that. The slurry will come up out of the hole, scoop it back out of the way as you're doing it, making sure that you're not covering any of the plants. Obviously, take your 4-foot piece of plywood out of the way before you install the probe, because that probe head isn't going to go through that 4-inch hole after the fact. So pull that out of the way. Obviously, always be careful of the seed rows when you're installing the probe, because now you are standing in the seed row and not on the plywood. And slowly push that probe all the way down. It can take a little while to get that probe in, because you are forcing it down into that slurry. Again, if the slurry mix is too thick, you're basically going to have problems pushing that down through that. And if it's way too thin, the probe will almost fall directly into the hole. So you're going to notice that as well. So let's mix it the proper consistency so that you're going to have the proper consistency of slurry come up around, and it's going to dry out to make proper contact around that probe. Yeah, so once it's seated properly and it's down all the way, the probe physically is suctioned into the ground and it's going to want to stay there. So it's going to be very hard to move when it's properly seated down and into the slurry. Any questions so far? We will go through all of this. You guys will all get your chance to install a probe, drill holes, and mix slurry as well. So.
Any tips or tricks for those who have installed probes so far on this conversation that we missed?
Who here has installed a probe? What's the toughest part of it about installing a probe? Drilling the hole? Okay,
Drilling the hole straight.
okay, yeah, absolutely. You definitely have to be mindful of the auger because you start pushing your weight on it and you tend to deviate from straight up and down. Definitely. Yeah. It'll come with practice. You know, I don't want you guys to have to drill excessive amounts of holes, but you are gonna have to drill one for each and every one of these probes, and by the end of the year, you guys will be experts, for sure.
And that is only as good as the install, so if we have issues installing it, then you're gonna have issues later in the year, so. I know this is like a lot to take in, but it's really key that it gets done properly for sure.
Exactly. So I've got a couple of quick little videos here of the slurry, and this is just to show you the consistency of it pouring out. So it's like heavy pancake batter. As you can see, he's got the cable connected already. He's gonna push that probe down in. He's got lots of slurry around that probe, so he's gonna scoop it out. He's gonna put it back into the bucket. You don't want to ever leave it in the row, in the seed row, because once that dries out, it sets up almost like concrete. It's very solid and the plants have a hard time growing through that. So you want to make sure you clean all that out. So on the right-hand side is a properly installed probe. It is down to the green body on that and nice and flush. And that is the way it should be situated. You also want to make sure that you go ahead and query your cable from the probe to the flex, or from the probe to the station, just again, so that the rodents don't have a chance of chewing at it as well. Questions so far? So probe install, you've connected the probe to the station. You've gone ahead and power cycled the station to trigger the probe reading or the flex. If you're installing a flex with one of these stations, most of the time it will not have the AA batteries in it. If it's been previously installed. Move on in. Come on in.
Yeah.
There you go. So in the head of the flex are the AA batteries, which power the communication device. In the body down here, the two blue lithium ion batteries that power the probe cable. So both of those sets have to be installed. A lot of the previous installs have been removed over the winter and stored in bags. The blue batteries need to be replaced every second year. So if this is a brand new install, write the dates on those blue batteries so that you know that in 2 years you have to install new ones. The AA batteries absolutely have to be brand new AA lithium ion energizer batteries every single year. The reason why we use the lithium ion batteries is they tend to last the longest, and that is what is spec'd from the manufacturer of the product, so that we get the proper longevity and the proper communication out of this device. We would go ahead and pound the pole in for the flex, just to the side of the probe. If it's going to be a flex install, the station is on the edge of the field, flex and probe are in the field itself. You're going to connect the probe cable to the flex device pigtail and going to power cycle the flex by installing the AA batteries or pulling the small plastic cab that is situated in the new ones. You're just going to pull it out. The lights are going to power up and start communicating with the station.
Yeah. So these usually only take a reading every hour, but after being powered on, they'll take them right away. So if it was being wired into the station, you'll have one of these connectors sticking on the side. Just take your solar panel cable, unplug it, plug it back in after you've connected the probe. That'll force it to take a reading and you'll know if everything's right.
Yeah. And during this installation, you always want to power up the probe, that up. You always want to install the station and power up the station first so that it is communicating while you go ahead and install the flex and the probe. Because once the flex comes online, it wants to communicate wirelessly to that station, and then you can query it after you're done your cleanup and verified your install. So basically, you're going ahead and powering the station, installing it, getting all of that communicating, you've queried it, you've made sure that that's communicating. Then you've gone out to your site, to your probe site location, and you've done your install there. And then gone ahead and powered up the unit so that it can talk to the wireless gateway.
So if it's a probe and station install without the flex, your station will be here. Your probe will be 5 or 6 feet to the west of it. And then your marking flag should be just beside the probe.
Any questions so far?
For the flexes, do you guys send the AA batteries or do you just grab those from the front of the shop?
So a lot of yours, you guys will have purchased bulk AA Energizer batteries. So any new installs with brand new equipment all come with batteries. So anything that is missing it, you will have to install new batteries. But your service writer will have all of that for you when they start scheduling that.
And I can't emphasize how important it is that we get the Energizer lithium batteries in there. And we have seen a few John Deere Strong Box batteries in there. It won't work. So make sure we get those lithium ones from the team. Yeah.
The other types of batteries, Duracell and all the other ones, Kirkland batteries, they will not make a full season, sadly enough. So you absolutely have to use the Energizer lithium ion batteries. This season here, this spring, we will be doing a over-the-air update to all the units as well, which is key to have full battery power when you initialize everything. So we do randomly do over-the-air updates to make sure that the product is continuing to operate properly from the manufacturer's recommendations. And we do need to make sure that it's communicating so that that will take as well. Any other questions?
Also, don't try to use a regular D battery in the base here. They are not the same voltage as what these are. They will not work at all.
So, and once you've got everything installed, you're gonna document and verify the installation. So obviously on your app, you're gonna walk through everything. You're gonna select your solar panel facing south. Please do not whip this step. It's real easy to just go through and check everything off. Make sure you're following the steps properly, because this is here so that you guys don't have to go back out to the field and redo something because it wasn't done properly the first time. So do it right the first time so you don't have to do it twice. Okay, on the right-hand side is the query of the station. So this is showcasing the query run. It was April 18th. This one was done. The station ID, serial number, the status. So it was reported at 13:45 or 1:45 p.m. The firmware version, your voltage of your weather station and the charge. Obviously the GPS location. All of the devices are GPS located. Your air temp, your leaf wetness, your pressure, all of your different types of sensors, making sure that they all physically call in. You do also always want to activate your rain bucket just by tipping it once as well. Once the rain bucket and everything is installed, just so that everything called in for a query once it's all installed. Make sure that that's locked in, otherwise it will fall out. So yeah, it just takes a little quarter turn in the bottom there. Just like that to lock it into place. Any questions so far? You guys will all have access to the query? Yes, Alana.
So if I have a leak wetness sensor plugged in and it's not showing a reading. If I have a leak wetness sensor plugged in, it should always show a reading when I go to query the station.
Correct.
If it's not, then that could be an issue of.
It's not correctly installed or connected to the station, or it's not been onboarded properly, showcasing that it has a leak wetness sensor as well.
There may not be much of a reading if it's dry, but you'll still see that reported at recent time and date. Yeah.
So I don't need to necessarily look at the data, it's more the time that it is last reported.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And that one logs as soon as I plug it in.
All the sensors, you should get a reading, usually within about 5 minutes, but it can take a little bit longer, sometimes up to 15.
The station itself will call the environmentals in every 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes on the hour, you will get a reading from that weather station. The probe itself will only call in once an hour, so just be aware of that. If you do need to verify that the probe is communicating and the flex is communicating to a weather station, you can power cycle the batteries, the AA batteries, by pulling one of them out, putting it back in, and it'll force it to call in like Andrew stated earlier. So again, always make sure that everything is communicating before you physically leave the field. Because you start driving away and double check later, and now it's still not working. So you're now driving back to the field where you were just an hour ago. So
Yeah, and in the query, what you're looking for the probe, that screen doesn't show it, but you'll see each of the sensors. They'll probably all be a 0.9 something.
Yeah.
With the wet slurry. As long as they're all showing that, you know, you probably don't have any air pockets. It should be okay.
So again, then clean up your area, making sure the area is tidy. All your equipment is zip tied or taped to your station. Your ratchet strap and everything else is nice and secure and put together. We don't want anybody to leave a very messy site because that grower is going to drive by that field after you installed it. Pretty much guaranteed, because he's paying for your services to do that. And if he sees a messy site that isn't cleaned up, he's not gonna be happy. That's his dirt, his ground. Yes,
Line locate states.
yes. So yes, once you're all said and done and installed, if there are any line locate flags out there, definitely remove them. Every now and then they get left by other individuals or the grower doesn't have time to pick them up. Help them out by cleaning up all that debris if you see it, for sure. Thank you. And then obviously your installation verification, like Alana said before, the soil moisture zone will come on roughly about 5 days after the install. So you will want to verify that there are no air pockets around the probe. This graph here is actually showing the 10 centimeter sensor drying out super fast. So what has gone ahead and happened there is that on the install, the top portion of that probe wasn't covered with soil and slurry. Just right here in that, showing that you don't have proper contact with the soil and the slurry. So this is a quick indication. If you guys are looking at the graph and you see one of these sensors drop off super fast, especially right after install, you're gonna have to go back out there and probably reinstall that probe.
The other thing you might see is if there's a rain event, it spikes up really high immediately. So water, yeah.
Like that, you betcha. So yes. So if you don't catch it within that first, 5 days after it's come online, at a later date, you're going to see rain events like she mentioned. So you're gonna see a spike, and what that means is that water is contacting that probe instantly versus making its way through the soil texture to get to that probe. And you get those spikes on the graph showing that you have air pockets and gaps in that. Again, that zone will need to be reinstalled. Make sense? Any questions about that? The whole goal here is you guys do things once, not twice. Because you guys have a very short time frame to do this, because once that grower tells you that field is seeded, you're going to be scheduled to do that install and get everything done in a timely manner. So we want to be in and out of that field as quick as possible, because that field's going to start sprouting up pretty quick. And the more we trample on that area is probably detrimental to the proper data that we want from that zone location. And last but not least, we're going to talk about CLUBROOT protocol again. We can't state this enough. You always want to navigate back to the road using the same path that you came in. So you're, again, not traveling back and forth in areas of the field too much, causing compaction. You want to stop and complete your CLUBROOT protocol with the products that you use. Again, we use bleach and water, company trucks, not a big deal. If it was my own truck, I would definitely be using something less caustic in certain timeframes. But again, spray down your truck wheels, your wheel wells, your running boards, any of the equipment that you've used, your augers, making sure that they're clean. You just want to make sure that everything that you had out in that grower's field, because you're essentially going to somebody else's field next with equipment, you want to make sure that everything's clean. Like we said, we had lots of water in the truck. More is better. You want to wash everything up, including your boots, and make sure that everything's clean for your next site visit as well. So Just a quick little picture of what CLUBROOT does to the plant and the current CLUBROOT map. Again, not as much in the southern area, but we have lots of vendors, lots of growers all over the province, and we don't want anything transferring down. You don't want to be that individual that starts an issue in an area that we didn't have prior. Any questions? Yes.
One thing about the CLUBROOT thing too is when you're washing your shovels and stuff, if you use water first, then make sure you use the bleach solution afterwards. Don't put the bleach solution on and then wash it all off. Water won't work.
Yeah, your best bet is clean all your tools and all your equipment first, and then do your CLUBROOT protocol so that everything is basically neutralized, for sure. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, the afternoon is gonna be awesome because we're gonna be outside in the nice sun. And we're gonna drill some holes. We're gonna install station, we're gonna install probes, mix slurry. So make sure that everybody's ready to rock and roll outside. Yeah, we're gonna get our hands dirty.
So for those of you who are here with us live, pizza will be here in about 10 minutes. We'll have lunch and then we'll go outside after lunch is done. With those of you who are with us on the Teams meeting, we will be recording the installations outside as well too. So you'll have a full view of what the guys are doing out there as well, and we will have this available for you there as well. For those of you who are here as well, the recordings are all going to be posted afterwards as well. So we'll make sure that we get you the links for all of this as, if you need to do that, or if you have others in your locations that need to see this information as well too. So, okay, so we'll take about a 10-minute break here. Lunch will be here in a couple minutes and we'll go from there. So thank you.
Perfect, thank you.